Since 2015, Jared Stillman has rocked Nashville sports.
That team freaking stinks.
And now he's back. The takes are hotter than ever.
I mean, let's be honest, he just can't coach.
Welcome to Stillman and Company.
Stillman Co, 440 Sports, presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, part of the Believe YouTube Podcast Network. Go ahead, give it a like and subscribe. Most importantly, subscribe. Get your friends to subscribe. Tell your friends to subscribe. We want to keep growing those subscribers as we go. So again, like and subscribe. Let me start first jumping on this today. I've never met James Vanderbeek, who it was, I guess, 30 minutes ago announced that James Vanderbeek, who played Dawson on Dawson's Creek and also played John Moxon, the quarterback in Varsity Blues, passed away. And I just saw this right before I jumped on and saw that James Vanderbeek had passed away. I never met James Vanderbeek, but I was just a huge, huge, huge fan, both on Dawson's Creek and in Varsity Blues. And I knew that he was sick, and I knew that he was raising money, and I knew that he was, and to see that he passed away, I mean, that just stinks. Again, a guy I never met. Okay. So we got a lot to get to today. Caroline going to pop on the show in about 35 minutes or so, which will recap everything that happened at the Super Bowl, both on the air and off the air. First, I want to tell you about our presenting sponsor. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Hiller! They take great care of my home. They can do the same for you. They've been in business since 1990. They are family-owned and operated with 100% satisfaction. Of happy you will be, or the service is free. If a customer is not pleased with the work performed, Hiller will make it right. Learn more at happyhiller.com. Professional, experienced, trustworthy technicians that come into your home and leave it clean and better than they found it. Care is their core value, and they believe that when they care about others, everybody wins, and they'll take care of the customer on every job, every time. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Again, they take great care of my home. They can do the same for you. Proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. That's Hiller. Call the Happy Face Truck today. Okay, still discussing the fallout from Super Bowl 60. And today we start on the great Mike Vrabel. And let me say this first and foremost, and I don't know if anybody has said this, but I just want to make sure that they know that I think this. Congratulations to Amy Adams Strunk, because as much as the Minnesota Vikings are getting just absolutely drugged through the mud for letting 14-win quarterback Sam Darnold leave to go to the Seahawks and win the Super Bowl, Amy Adams Strunk would have taken it far, far, far tougher than Minnesota has, because when Minnesota dumped on Darnold, a lot of people thought, well, he's not very good, so okay, that makes sense. When the Titans dumped on Vrabel, it was like, you cannot, oh my God, you got rid of the great Mike Vrabel. Like, what are we talking about? Oh my God, what are we doing here? And so, congratulations to Amy, because if Vrabel had won the game on Sunday, everybody and their grandma would have been crushing her even more than she's already been crushed, and even more than they're crushing Minnesota today. That's it. I don't know who really expected Vrabel to win that game. And in the end, it was obvious that Seattle was just a much better team than New England. Now, let me say this for me. I did not want Vrabel to win the game, because I knew if Vrabel won the game, there would be a lot of people that would have been like, what do you think now, Jared? And, I root for my opinions and my takes the way that I was rooting for Sam Darnold and against Mike Vrabel, because I think Vrabel's a good coach. I don't think Vrabel's that good of a coach. But there was a part of me that wanted Vrabel and the Patriots to win, because as much as I enjoy being right, and as much as I defend my opinions and everything else, if the Patriots had won, I would have gotten so many first-time viewers of this program that saw me in Boston, that would have jumped into the YouTube chat, that would have loved to have been like, what do you think of the great Mike Vrabel now, Jared? And had they won, I would have had to, I'm telling you, again, I never have opinions before things happen because I don't believe in that. I don't believe in saying, okay, if this happens, then I'm going to feel this way. I usually just let the things happen and then I feel it. But I was totally prepared. If New England won that game, I was totally, as long as it wasn't another fluky Angels in the outfield type thing like the Patriots had been writing all season, where the game starts and half of Seattle's team has to check out because they all have food poisoning. But had New England won the game fair and square, which it almost looked like Sam was trying to help them on the first play of the game where he almost threw a pick six. Had that happened, I would have come on here and I would have said, I was wrong about Vrabel. But now I don't feel that way. I feel like Vrabel's a good coach and Vrabel got every break and everything else. And yet I'm watching the reaction around the football world to the fallout of Super Bowl 60. And I'm thinking to myself, if this were the stock market, I'm not sure anybody looks at Mike Vrabel and points a finger and says, hey, you could have done better. Hey, you should have done better. They just blame everybody else. In fact, here's what the sports stock market has looked like.
Good morning. TGMV shares hit all-time highs today after Mike Vrabel's second Coach of the Year award. However, Nashville-based firm Stillman Co remains bearish on Vrabel's stock. Bad news for Will Campbell. Shares have been falling significantly after the rookie's awful Super Bowl, allowing a season-worst 14 pressures. And investors are torn on Drake Maye, concerned about the right shoulder. More after the break.
Okay, so the fallout from the Super Bowl has been Vrabel stock still trading at an all-time high. Nobody looks at him and says, hey, Vrabel kind of fucked up maybe by drafting a guard with the 4th overall pick. But instead, everybody's dumping on Will Campbell, who always had short arms. I watched Will Campbell play the Titans, and I thought, Will Campbell looks like a guard. And you know how I felt about the whole Skoronski thing? I was like, at least try him at tackle and see if he can play tackle. And if he can't play tackle, move him to guard. And Vrabel was completely unwilling to do that. But with Campbell, I watched him play the Titans earlier in the year, and I'm like, that looks like a guard out there. And so, nope, it's just, Will Campbell, he sucks. And now with Drake Maye, it's, was Drake Maye's shoulder bad? Was Drake Maye overrated? Was Drake Maye? And again, none of the talk about the Super Bowl's on Vrabel. In fact, a lot of the talk is just, this was the beginning, and it's onward and upward for the New England Patriots from here. And let me just say this. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I don't. I'm not trying to act like I know what's going to happen in the future, although sometimes I feel pretty good about my own predictions, about my own analysis. But I'm not a fortune teller. And the NFL, I always tell people, it's not linear. So Vrabel gets to the Super Bowl in year 1 in New England. And I'm just kind of seeing what people are saying in New England. And there's this one guy, Andrew Callahan, who I think covers the team for the Boston Herald, but he's also got a show. And on his show, he was like, it's not crazy to think that the Patriots won't be back in the Super Bowl. And I'm like, I'm not saying it's crazy to think they'll be back in the Super Bowl, but it's hard for me to envision that the Patriots are ever going to have this easy of a road. But this is what happens when Tom Brady warps everybody's brain in an entire region of the country to where they think, we've got the next Tom Brady at quarterback and we've got the next Bill Belichick at coach. And so we're just going to go back to the Super Bowl every year. And I'm like, man, let me tell you something. I went to the Super Bowl at the old Georgia Dome in 2000, the 99 Titans, 99 Rams. The Titans lost by 1 yard. And I knew the Titans were going to be back. In fact, the next season, the Titans were even better. And they lost in the divisional round. The Titans got to an AFC championship game, and they fumbled the ball a couple of times and lost to the Raiders. The Titans got to the divisional round of the playoffs with the MVP at quarterback and couldn't beat Brady and Belichick in New England when it was minus 13 degrees outside. And that was the end of that Titans run. It's not linear. Let's go back to Vrabel's history here in Tennessee. In 2019, the Titans went to the AFC title game. I was talking with TD today, and I said, I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I actually think Mike Vrabel did a better job coaching in 2019 than he did this year with the Patriots. Now, people will say, well, Jared, the 2018 Titans won 9 games. The 2019 Titans won 9 games. And yes, they went to the AFC title game, but this Patriot team won 4 games last year, and they went to the Super Bowl this year. Well, if the Titans had gotten to play Jarrett Stidham in the AFC Championship game instead of Patrick Mahomes, they would have gone to the Super Bowl. In fact, if you go back to 2019, the AFC South was good. The Texans won the division. They got to the division round of the playoffs. Deshaun Watson was at quarterback. They were very good. Now, that being said, they did get a little luck. The best amount of luck Vrabel got in 2019 with the Titans was Andrew Luck retiring before the season. That was the luck they got. The luck they got this year, unbelievably easy schedule, an entire division that fired their coaches. They played one good team pretty much the entire season, Buffalo, and they went 1-1 against them. No offensive line for the Chargers. C.J. Stroud sucks for some reason, and Jarrett Stidham in the AFC title game. I would argue beating Brady and Belichick in New England, beating league MVP Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, and the defensive game plan that Dean Pease had in that game, I think was incredible for Lamar Jackson. And then going toe-to-toe with Mahomes for the first half in Kansas City, I personally think that's more impressive. The fact that they did it, you talk about coaching, they changed their quarterback 6 games into the season. They beat Mahomes in Kansas City during the regular season. I think that coaching job was better than this one. But it's not like in 2019, the Titans went to the AFC Championship game and had that foundation in place. Tannehill, Henry, A.J. Brown, the offensive line. And it's not like the next year they just picked up where they left off. Dean Pease retires. First big move Mike Vrabel has to make. What's he do? He technically didn't hire a defensive coordinator, but he made Shane Bowen the de facto defensive coordinator. And that was an unmitigated disaster because Shane Bowen sucks. By the way, Vrabel was asked if Zach Kerr, who took over for Terrell Williams when Terrell Williams got sick this year, was going to be named the defensive coordinator. Vrabel said we have to work through some things. There is a lot of reporting that says that the great Mike Vrabel may be interested in bringing, you guessed it, Shane Bowen in to be the defensive coordinator. So, again, it's not linear. And Vrabel, I thought, did a great coaching job in 2021, but at the end of the season, after they lost, he retained Todd Downing as offensive coordinator. And I think that was bad coaching. I also think one thing that happened, Vrabel got really arrogant after the 2021 season. They won the division with 90-something players. Vrabel was coach of the year. He could do no wrong. Ryan Tannehill got all the blame for that AFC playoff loss, even though Deontay Foreman was running the ball incredibly well, and the Titans took the ball out of his hands, and Tannehill threw another interception. And I don't know if that's Vrabel's fault, if that's Downing's fault. Vrabel also fucked up the decision to go for 2 early in the game, which is kind of like in the Super Bowl where Vrabel fucked up, knowing when to kick a PAT versus when to go for it. But Vrabel got very arrogant once he had the 2021 success. And I think that led to a schism between him and John Robinson. I think Amy Adams Strunk tried to quell the schism, and instead of addressing it head on like a real owner should, she just gave them matching contract extensions, hoping to send the message that, hey, you two are in this together. And I'm not necessarily sure that worked. And then Vrabel continued to fuck up with the coaching staff. He kept Downing into 2022. Downing got the DUI. Then after that, he fired Downing and he fired Keith Carter. But he didn't go out and get a good offensive coordinator. He brought in Tim Kelly. He didn't go out and get a good offensive line coach. He just promoted Jason Hodeling. Well, now Vrabel's had a little taste of success. And just like here in Nashville, right now, Vrabel's poop does not stink. Vrabel is getting no blame for what happened in Super Bowl 60. Nobody is pointing the finger at Mike Vrabel and saying, you drafted a guard with the 4th overall pick? Do people know, like, one of Vrabel's biggest issues is his stubbornness, and he's already said, we're not moving him off of tackle. You're not going to have the same easy schedule next year. You're going to have a much tougher schedule. With the AFC having the quarterbacks that it has, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, who will return from injury. I have a hard time believing that the road to the Super Bowl is going to go through a terrible C.J. Stroud and Jarrett Stidham next year. And so, again, I don't think there's this linear growth with Mike Vrabel that, okay, Super Bowl year 1, now it's nothing but Belichick in the future. Vrabel is a good coach. Vrabel is not a transcendent coach. Again, I make the joke about the stock market. Vrabel stock is trading at an all-time high. But how good of a coach is Vrabel really? Is Vrabel as good as Kyle Shanahan? Kyle Shanahan loses every player to injury during the course of the year. This year, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, Brandon Ayuk got hurt and then went off the reservation, and he still ends up in the divisional round of the playoffs. This is a guy, Kyle Shanahan got to the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback. Vrabel is not as good of a coach as Kyle Shanahan. He's not as good of a coach as Andy Reid. He's not as good of a coach as Sean McVay. Again, it's the bro in him. It's the personality. And for some reason, he gets a pass. Titans lose to the Bengals in the playoffs. It's all Ryan Tannehill's fault. 0% to Mike Vrabel. Titans go 7-10 in 2022, lose 7 games in a row at the end of the year, and it is 100% John Robinson's fault for trading A.J. Brown and is 0% Mike Vrabel's fault, even though they were 7-3 to start the season without A.J. Brown. Vrabel could not replace Arthur Smith. Vrabel struggled to replace Dean Pease. Don't even get me started on Craig Aukerman. I just struggled to think that Vrabel is going to prove himself as the best coach in the league, which is how everybody interprets him right now. And so, again, I look at the expectations in New England. And I know technically Vrabel's not the guy to follow the guy Gerard Mayo coached for a year, but that might as well be a blip on the radar. Mike Vrabel's replacing the guy. Mike Vrabel has replaced Bill Belichick. And whether or not Bill Belichick's success was a derivative of having Tom Brady as his quarterback and getting lucky with the decision that he made to replace Bledsoe with Brady, the reality is people in New England are going to have the expectation that Mike Vrabel is going to have the Patriots in the AFC Championship game or the Super Bowl every season. And I'm just not sure that's feasible. That was never the expectation here in Tennessee. They went to the AFC Championship game in 2019. They lost to the Chiefs. They lost by 11 points. No harm, no foul. San Francisco lost that Super Bowl by 11 points. You were right there. The next year, they won the division with the 28th ranked defense in the NFL that was an unmitigated disaster and lost at home in the playoffs to Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. Again, the national perspective was no harm, no foul. Vrabel coached him up. Lamar finally got his playoff win. But that's not how they're going to take it in New England if that's what happens next year. If Vrabel and the Patriots go one and done in the playoffs. And then the next year, if Vrabel and the Patriots go one and done in the playoffs. They're not going to accept a 7-game losing streak like people around here did and the national media did in 2022. So I am fascinated to see where this goes. But again, I've always said Vrabel's a good coach. If Vrabel stock is trading at an all-time high right now at 300%, let's say, then, or let's say $300 a share, whatever, I'm just arbitrarily throwing that out there. I think Vrabel's probably worth $175, $185. I think he's overvalued as a coach. But, again, people will look at the Super Bowl and say, Well, you got to give Vrabel credit because they got there. So that's the first thing on Vrabel. The second thing is Will Campbell. So Mike Vrabel has come out and said he's not going to move Will Campbell. He's not moving him to guard. He's not moving him to center. He's not moving him to tight end. He is their left tackle. And I wonder if that's the first instance of Vrabel 2.0 with the Vrabel 1.0's stubbornness. I am not moving my short arm tackle that I drafted with the 4th overall pick to guard, even though he got absolutely obliterated the entire playoffs, including the Super Bowl. He used the 4th overall pick on an SEC tackle with short arms. Most people in today's NFL believe if your arms are too short, you're a guard. I don't necessarily believe that. I don't necessarily care about that. But Vrabel was hell-bent on Peter Skoronski being a guard and not being a tackle. And the only difference between Campbell and Skoronski is that Skoronski was drafted 11th and Campbell was drafted 4th. Skoronski was an All-American tackle at Northwestern in the Big Ten. That's the same as being an All-American tackle in the SEC. And yet, I almost wonder if Mike Vrabel is insistent on leaving Will Campbell at left tackle because he picked him 4th, and even he, Mike Vrabel, knows that you can't draft a guard with the 4th overall pick. And is that a Vrabel and Vrabel's ego and Vrabel's pride and Vrabel's stubbornness getting in the way? Would Mike Vrabel be better off with an average left tackle? And I'm not saying a $50 million a year guy like Dan Moore, or I guess that's $50 million guaranteed over 2 years for Dan Moore. I'm not saying a high-priced free agent like Dan Moore. I'm not saying a high first rounder at left tackle, because if you want to get a starting caliber left tackle in the NFL, you better pick him by pick number 8 in today's draft, and it's hard to improve offensive linemen. But would an average left tackle be better than Will Campbell with short arms over time? Again, forget about the fact that he was the 4th overall pick, and forget about the fact that Vrabel picked him. But if we're just saying, okay, we're going to do what's best for the team, would it not be to go look and see what's out there in free agency? Again, I'm not saying use the 31st pick in the draft on a tackle, because there's probably not going to be a starting tackle available with the 33rd pick or 31st pick or whatever. There's not going to be a starting tackle available, but would it not be in your best interest to at least consider it? But not Vrabel. Nope. He's our left tackle. I also think, though, if Vrabel were to come out today and say, well, we're going to evaluate everything, then all of a sudden it brings up a huge hubbub. But again, internally, I would not be 100% committed to Will Campbell at left tackle after what I saw in these playoffs. And it's not, well, he had a bad Super Bowl, so let's demote him. It's not that. It's that when they played elite pass rushers, whether it was Myles Garrett in Cleveland during the season, who had something like 4 or 5 sacks in a game, whether it was Will Anderson in the divisional round of the playoffs, whatever it may be, he was completely overmatched at tackle. It was like watching PT out there. Well, if that's the case, then you got to move him to guard. But again, you got to have that inside of you. You've got to be willing to look at everybody and say, I fucked that up. And I don't know if Vrabel can do that. The other thing I want to get to on the Vrabel front is Drake Maye. Because while Will Campbell is just getting dumped on for what happened in the Super Bowl, and Mike Vrabel is getting a complete and total pass for what happened in the Super Bowl, I feel like a lot of people are kind of in between on Drake Maye. Drake Maye had an MVP caliber season. If I had a vote for the MVP award, Drake Maye would have won it. Drake Maye would have been 1, Matthew Stafford would have been 2, Josh Allen would have been 3. If I was ranking the quarterbacks just on who was the best this year, Josh Allen, in my opinion, was number 1, Matthew Stafford number 2, Drake Maye was number 3. So you're really splitting hairs between those guys. And then in the playoffs, Drake Maye turned into a pumpkin. And so people are wondering, was it just the easy schedule? Is Drake Maye a fraud? Was it this shoulder injury? What was it? And yes, my take on the 2006 Bears, which has become this whole thing about Drake Maye and Rex Grossman, is starting to become a discussion point across the country and in Boston. This is what they said on the Felger and Maz program in Boston yesterday.
Here's the worst playoff runs by EPA in the last 30, since 2000, okay? So the last 26 years. And these are by quarterbacks who started at least 3 postseason games.
Okay.
So the worst EPAs in the playoffs since 2000 by quarterbacks who started at least 3 playoff games. The worst, Drake Maye 2025, minus 29.2.
Wow.
The next, Peyton Manning in 2015.
When they won it.
22.7. When he was a sidecar, handing off. 3 on the list, Rex Grossman in 2006.
Oh, boy.
22.5.
The Patriots are the 06 Bears.
I was going to say, who called us the 2006 Bears? Our guy, Jared Stillman.
Our guy, Jared Stillman. I just want to clarify something when it comes to May and it comes to that comparison and it comes to the Bears and Grossman. And I never compared Drake Maye to Rex Grossman. Drake May's awesome. And I think Drake Maye is going to be a really, really good quarterback. I have a hard time saying the Patriots are going to get back to the Super Bowl because there are a lot of really good quarterbacks in the AFC, and it's really hard to get to the Super Bowl. Joe Burrow got back to the AFC Championship game, but he hasn't been back to the Super Bowl. Josh Allen's a great quarterback. He hasn't been to the Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson, Hall of Famer, hasn't been to the Super Bowl. Justin Herbert, everybody takes their pants off for all the time, including me, until this year in the playoffs. Justin Herbert's never won a playoff game. So just because you're a really good quarterback doesn't mean you're going to get to the Super Bowl every year. And I think we have to remember that unlike Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes, who have warped everybody's brain, it is not some God-given right to always go to the Super Bowl. I mean, Aaron Rodgers has played in 1 Super Bowl, and Aaron Rodgers is really, really good. Ben Roethlisberger played in 3 Super Bowls, really, really good. Drew Brees played in 1 Super Bowl, really, really good. So my point is that I have a hard time believing that Drake Maye is for sure going to get back to the Super Bowl because it's so hard to get to the Super Bowl. But Drake Maye is not Rex Grossman. And I don't think that Drake Maye's performance in these playoffs were an indictment that he was a fraud during the regular season. I think Drake Maye is a very athletic quarterback. I think he's a very accurate quarterback. I think he's got great arm strength. I don't think his offensive coordinator is going anywhere, which is a huge step in the right direction for Maye. I just thought that this Patriot team was not on the same level as the Seahawks, the same way that that Bears team was not on the same level of the Colts in 2006. And the Colts and the Patriots met in the AFC title game in the RCA Dome. It was an unbelievable comeback for Manning and the Colts against Brady and the Patriots. And I really believe that the Super Bowl was decided that day at the RCA Dome in Indianapolis. And that if New England played the Bears in the Super Bowl, New England would have handled the Bears the same way the Colts handled the Bears. I believe the Super Bowl this year was between the 2 best teams, Seattle and the LA Rams, in the NFC Championship game. Seattle won the game, and if the Rams had played the Patriots, they would have handled the Patriots the same way the Seahawks handled the Patriots. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that Rex Grossman is now the expectation for Drake Maye. I compare Drake Maye to Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is a slam dunk first ballot Hall of Famer. So I have to say, when it comes to the Bears take, I was dead on with that, but it wasn't directly about the quarterback. And it feels like that's what everybody made it into, was that it was just directly into the quarterback. And that's not what I was saying. Finally, Kaharski today had a tweet. And boy, I bet a lot of you people like this one. So Kaharski said, here's what you're talking big. He's all mad because I called him out yesterday. because he was like, Sam Darnold wouldn't have wanted to come here, and Stillman gets on there and he says it, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, you can say whatever you want, but you sound like somebody who doesn't know the rules. So his deflection, instead of saying, I fucked that up, which is what he did, because he either knew the rules and lied about it, or he didn't know the rules, is now to just make it about me. He said, today's show, Titans should have acquired Darnold and Vrabel is overrated. Tomorrow's show, Vrabel is overrated and the Titans should have acquired Darnold. Friday, what Darnold thinks of Vrabel being overrated and what Vrabel thinks of the Titans' failure to get Darnold. And I'm sure a lot of people are like, yeah! Couple of things. Number one, considering that the Tennessean wrote a story about what life would have been like if the Titans hadn't fired Mike Vrabel, and Mike Vrabel just got to the Super Bowl, and Mike Vrabel is the coach of the year, and Mike Vrabel lost the Super Bowl, and Mike Vrabel is one of the single most polarizing topics in Nashville, Tennessee sports over the last decade, I'd say it's worth talking about. This guy says, Brian Callahan got a job today. And I'm like, who gives a shit? Everybody knows Brian Callahan sucks. There's not a single person outside of Easton Freeze that is standing there and arguing that Brian Callahan wasn't a shitty head coach. Every single person. I think deep down inside, we all know that Bill Callahan probably thinks that Brian Callahan was a shitty head coach. That's not a story. The Vrabel thing is so unbelievably polarizing. And the Super Bowl was 3 days ago. The combine is in a week and a half, and that's when we all turn the page on to next season. Next week is that one dead week a year. That's the week that I used to take on vacation because, again, it's in between the combine, in between the Super Bowl. You can rest up a little bit. But it's Vrabel and Darnold played in the Super Bowl. And there was so much talk about Sam Darnold and the Titans, and a lot of that was because of me. And so when Kaharski's like, you need to get a new topic, you need to, I'm like, it was the Super effing Bowl. That's what's important. And so, yeah, it's a big deal because it was the Super Bowl. Man, why would you talk about Darnold and why would you talk about Vrabel? I don't understand it. Let's talk about who's cleaning out the lunchroom for the Titans instead. I don't know, because they were the stars of the Super Bowl? Give me a break. One guy says, dude, you're right. It's obvious. The Titans should have acquired Darnold in the picks, but the Cam boys in the media aren't ever going to say it or believe it. Ding, 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 ding. And that's, I think, what makes me mad. I'm fine with letting this go. Now, I told everybody, including the Titans themselves, that I would be insufferable if Darnold won the Super Bowl. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure I thought he would, but he did. And so I am, again, continuing to back that insufferability. So I keep getting tweets from people, and I keep hearing people tell me, social media, the YouTube chat, this guy right now, Darnold was carried by the defense. People saying, well, Darnold wasn't that good, Jared. Completely ignoring the 364 and 3 touchdowns that he had in the NFC title game, which I thought was the real Super Bowl. But again, if Darnold didn't throw for 500 yards and run for 6 touchdowns, then people would have said, well, he threw those 500 yards to JSN, and it's all because of JSN. It doesn't matter with the fact that the Seahawks didn't make the playoffs last year, and they didn't make the playoffs because Sam led a fourth quarter comeback, and he and Justin Jefferson went off at a game in Seattle in September that kept them out of the playoffs. It doesn't matter with the fact that Minnesota won 9 games this past year, fired their general manager for letting Sam go. You guys just all think he's a passenger and he sucks, and the Titans are better off with Cam Ward. So I went and decided, you know what? We're going to do this, in my opinion, in the most objective way possible. Instead of people just saying, the Titans would have been 3-14 too if Darnold was the quarterback. Put Cam on the Seahawks and he would have been so much better. So we're using a stat called EPA. And I decided to use EPA per play, where Cam is something like 50th in the NFL and Darnold is something like 17th in the NFL. EPA per play, which is how many points you add to your team by being out there, above or below a replacement level quarterback, just your average nobody, Johnny Joe at quarterback. And these are not my stats. I got these from Sumer Sports. So again, objectivity. Sam Darnold, EPA per play was 0.09. So Sam Darnold was basically worth 1/10 of a point every play for the Seahawks. Cam Ward was 0.17. So about, again, 1/15 of a point or whatever that is. Cam Ward was per play for the Titans. He cost the Titans points. I decided to go with 587 snaps because that is the average between the two, Darnold and Ward. If you're looking at the stream, you can see it right there. 587. Over the course of the year, Sam Darnold added 53 points to the Seattle Seahawks, according to EPA per play. Cam Ward cost the Titans 0.17 EPA per play. That's 100 points over the course of an entire season, 17 games. So then add 53 minus the 100 points. Or the way I did it was I added the 2, and that's 153 points in the direction of Darnold. That is a 9-point difference per game in the direction of Sam Darnold. So then I asked myself, how many games would the Titans have won this year if you just added to the total 9 points? And the answer is they would have won 8 games this year. They would have been 8 games. Swap out Cam, put in Sam, use EPA per play, and they would have won 8 games. They would have been 8-9. They would have beaten Denver. They would have beaten the Seahawks. They would have beaten the Texans once. They would have beaten the Chargers. They would have, again, I don't know exactly all the games, but they would have won 8 games. 8-9 is a lot better than 3-14. 8-9 means that in November and December, you're still playing for something. That's more fun than winning 3 games. Now, some of you will say, oh, who cares? 8 wins, that doesn't mean anything. Well, you have to show growth at some point. You at some point have to start to build your team. But that is before you add in the fact that instead of having to trade away pick 35 and drafting Oladejo and Kevin Winston, you could then have traded with the Giants. So it's not just Sam Darnold in, Cam Ward out. It's also add Abdul Carter, add Jaden Higgins, add Nick Emanwari. That's probably worth a game or 2, right? Well, now you're at 9 or 10 wins. And Mike Borgonzi's on the hot seat. I can guarantee you he much rather have won 8 games last year than have won 3. That's just, so don't tell me. You can tell me that you think Cam will be Mahomes. That's fine. I don't believe that, but you can tell me that. What you can't do is you can't tell me that the Titans would have been ass with Sam Darnold at quarterback. 8-9 is not bad in the NFL. 6 wins is bad. And it drives me crazy when like everybody just ignores it. They're like, no, Jared, he sucks. He just won the Super Bowl. As everybody else. Give me a break. Okay, with that, we are joined now by Caroline Fenton, Yahoo Sports, joining us on the program. Caroline, to get you on the show. You know why I wanted to have you on the show? I mean, obviously because I love you.
Because you love talking with me. That's why.
I do. But at some point, I wanted to recap not just the Super Bowl and the Super Bowl week, but everything that happened Super Bowl week on the air and off the air and everything else. That is what I wanted to go through all of it. So let's start at the very top. What's that?
Like Club Shay Shay?
So if you're looking at the stream, it does say Caroline Fenton, Yahoo Sports, number 3 on Jared Stillman's best take list.
Honored.
But we also have this one that says
2-time attendee. Not the Club Shay Shay party. No. Just Club Shay Shay.
Club Shay Shay.
Club Shay Shay goes where the Super Bowl goes.
The last year at the Super Bowl, the New Orleans Super Bowl, we went to the volume party. We weren't invited to it, but Hutton told us about it. And so we tagged along with Hutton and Clay and Chad Withrow because they told us, drop this guy's name. It's a guy, Bob Millheiser. I don't know if I should say that that's who it is, but
yeah, maybe not. But Bob's a great guy.
Bob is a great freaking guy. But I didn't know Bob. But Hutton was like, drop Bob's name at the door and that'll get you in.
We're which is like
And
half
so-
of Super Bowl parties. Like
Oh,
somebody just tells you the person that gets you the in, you say the name, you go in.
So so we dropped Bob's name and we got into the party, and then we met Bob and we freaking loved Bob.
Love Bob.
And somehow me, you, Bob, and John Middlecoff, who, congratulations to him, he's now on Netflix doing his show. The four of
Also,
us
great guy.
ended up at the Club Shay Shay party last year, which was inside a mall, and it was in this restaurant like J. Alexander's, but it was absolutely Club Shay Shay. Shannon was at the top of his game, and every good player from the 90s, Michael Irvin, Marshall Falk, Warren Moon, like every good player from the 90s was there at the Club Shay Shay party.
Stephen A. was there.
Year, Stephen A. was there.
Having a big time.
Did you see Stephen A. walking out of the Shay Shay party this year?
Yes.
I mean, he was styling and profiling.
Also, two-time attendee of Club Shay Shay.
He is a two-time attendee of Club Shay Shay. So then this year we go to the volume party, and we actually were on the list this year. We didn't have to drop names in order to get in or anything like that. So we went to the volume party. We saw Bob. We saw Middlecoff, and we were all like, Club Shay Shay. And then somehow the Hutton was like, hey, we're all going to the Club Shay Shay party.
Bob's like,
So
I've got a car.
We ended up in this giant SUV. Caroline and Bob were stuffed in the back, and we ended up at the Club Shay Shay party. So Caroline Fenton, two-time attendee of the Club Shay Shay party. Caroline, I want to start with this. Have I been validated and vindicated on the Sam Darnold front now that Sam Darnold has won a Super Bowl with the Seattle Seahawks?
Is there any better validation or vindication than winning a Super Bowl? Like that's the pinnacle. That's what we use as, if this guy wins a Super Bowl, then fine. That's not going to happen, which is, I feel like, what a lot of people were saying about Sam Darnold. Even after his year in Minnesota, nobody wanted to change their mind about Sam Darnold. We do this in football. We are so slow to change our minds about a guy when in our minds he's already sucked. Like Baker Mayfield, it took us a minute for us to really like rewire our brains and like, no, Baker Mayfield's a starting quarterback in the NFL. Daniel Jones, it took me like half the season to be like, okay, all right, Daniel Jones is different. But with Sam Darnold, we were even slower to do it. It was like winning 14 games with the Vikings wasn't enough. We were like, yeah, but it's KOC and it's Justin Jefferson and the defense was good. We didn't want to give him any sort of credit. So, I mean, winning a Super Bowl, there is no better validation of vindication. And people might push back on that and say, yeah, well, he didn't have to do much in the Super Bowl, which doesn't take away from the fact that he won a Super Bowl. But it's also not like he's a Brad Johnson, Trent Dilfer type of Super Bowl winning quarterback. Like the Seahawks aren't in the Super Bowl without what Sam Darnold did in the NFC Championship game. I mean, in that NFC Championship game, as elite shutdown as that Seahawks defense was, as great as that Rams defense was, the defenses were kind of a non-factor in that game. Like that was mano-a-mano, Matthew Stafford, league MVP, brightest offensive coach in the game versus Sam Darnold. Go shot for shot. And Sam Darnold won. Like Sam Darnold won that shot for shot matchup against the league MVP. So I don't know how anyone could not give Sam Darnold credit. Sure, he had a good defense around him. Sure, he had one of the best receivers in the league around him. But don't all great quarterbacks have pieces around them as well? Like, didn't Brady need Gronk and Julian Edelman? Like, didn't Patrick Mahomes also need Travis Kelce and Chris Jones defensively? Like, we talk about quarterbacks like it's only them and they're just surrounded by a bunch of scrubs, and we discount good, not elite quarterbacks for winning Super Bowls or getting far in the postseason because they have elite pieces around them. We don't do that to Brock Purdy. We don't do that to Jalen Hurts. So why are we doing that to Sam Darnold? So I do hope that you feel validated and vindicated because you 1000% are. You should be.
That was very, very kind. Does that then give reasons to be nervous about Mike Borgonzi running the Titans? Because the Titans basically turned their back to Darnold. Nick Suss reported that the coaching staff had interest in Darnold, but the front office was like, oh, well, we would only win 7 games, and who gives a rat's ass if we win 7 games? And we're building for the future with Cam. And does that give you hesitation? Again, they won 3 games this year. They won 3 games last year, so they didn't even improve by a single game. Does that give you reason for hesitation, or are you like all these bozos out there that are like, no, Cam's going to be Mahomes?
Well, you led me into that question, calling everybody else a bozo. I think the Titans would have been better with Sam Darnold, but all of that waxing poetic that I just did about Sam Darnold, we also have to acknowledge that Sam Darnold, like a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL, is going to be a product of the pieces that you put around him. Does Sam Darnold win the Super Bowl if he has crap receivers, no offensive line, and a bottom of the NFL defense? No. I don't think any quarterback in the NFL would. So I don't think that Sam Darnold would all of a sudden make the Titans a Super Bowl contender. I don't think Sam Darnold makes the Titans even a playoff team. Does he make them 10% better? Yeah, like I would buy into that. So I don't know how much of it was the front office was like, no on Sam Darnold because we don't believe in Sam Darnold, or no on Sam Darnold because we don't believe in paying him $40 million a year when we have to put as much around him as we would need to. The difference in drafting Cam Ward is we have him on a rookie deal and we can afford to put the pieces around him with him on a rookie deal versus paying a Sam Darnold $40 million a year and needing the same amount of pieces around him. But I mean, yeah, is there anything that you've seen from the Titans that would give you encouragement about Mike Borgonzi? It's not just the Sam Darnold situation. It's the entire roster as a whole. Like, I heard you talking before I hopped on that he's on the hot seat. He should be on the hot seat. This team sucks. Everyone should be on the hot seat. Everyone should feel uncomfortable.
Caroline Fenton with us. What do you make about Vrabel? What do you make about the fact that Vrabel did get to the Super Bowl? What do you make about the path that Vrabel had to get to the Super Bowl? And I said that he's the luckiest coach, with that path to get to the Super Bowl. Everybody in Boston and Barstool Sports got mad at me. And then again, talking about validation and vindication, the Seahawks beat the Patriots by more than the Colts beat the Bears by in the 2006 Super Bowl. But at the same time, now Vrabel's got a Will Campbell problem on his hands, and everybody just thinks that, hey, Vrabel will get back to the Super Bowl and Drake Maye and the Patriots, and I'm like, it's not that simple. Growth is not linear. What do you make of Vrabel? What do you make of the Patriots?
The Will Campbell problem. Have we heard that story before? Vrabel drafts a left tackle out of college early in the draft, and everybody says, all the metrics say, all the measurements say that guy's really not a left tackle, but you're going to draft him with a premier draft pick anyway. I've heard that before. Look, Mike Vrabel's a good coach. You don't accidentally get to the Super Bowl, whether you're playing a bunch of Pee-wee programs along the way or not. Like, you have to be a good coach. You have to be a well-coached team in order to find your path to the Super Bowl. But we also have to acknowledge the Patriots' path to the Super Bowl was probably one of the luckiest in the history of the NFL. Like, I'm always very hesitant to say the blankest in the history of the NFL because, I don't know what the path to the Super Bowl was in 1967. But I would say this is probably the clearest path in my lifetime that I remember. When you have a postseason in the AFC with no Joe Burrow, with no Patrick Mahomes, with no Lamar Jackson, your path was a Chargers team that doesn't have an offensive line and Justin Herbert that is allergic to winning games in the playoffs. When CJ Stroud is a double agent, he should have been wearing a Patriots jersey in that game. And then a snow blizzard game with Jarrett Stidham. That's your path to the Super Bowl? I think both things can be true. I think both things can be fairly said that Mike Vrabel is a good coach with a team that's ahead of schedule with a quarterback in year 2. And also, they were lucky. They had a fortunate draw in the postseason. So yes, you're right. He does have a Will Campbell problem. This is the same thing and the perfect example of why it's so hard for me to trust Mike Vrabel, even acknowledging that he is a good coach. He's stubborn as hell. He makes the same mistakes over and over again. And we saw it with Will Campbell. That was probably the biggest wart of Super Bowl Sunday, was just how out of place Will Campbell looked. That was a Mike Vrabel decision, taking a guy who's probably a guard in the NFL, putting him at left tackle and drafting him with the 4th overall pick.
Yeah, I don't know what they're like. I don't know what you do. I don't know how you get a left tackle when you're picking 31st in the draft. But I do know this. If I was just running the Patriots and I got hired today to run the Patriots, I would be evaluating left tackle. Like, I would look at the free agent board. I would look at who's out there. I would look at the draft. Okay, we're picking 31st. I'm not going to try to trade up to 8 to draft a left tackle, and there are probably not ready to go in the NFL left tackles that are on the board after about the 6th pick in a draft. So I'm not going to draft one unless there's a guy at 31 that can actually play left tackle, but I would investigate it. And if there ended up being a guy that could play left tackle that I could sign in free agency or draft at 31, I would do that, and then I would move Will Campbell into guard. I just don't think Vrabel can do that. And the reason I don't think Vrabel can do that is because Vrabel picked him fourth. And I don't think that the ego of Vrabel can live with the idea of, I picked him fourth. Even Vrabel knows he can't pick a guard fourth. I have to play him at left tackle because I can't play a guard whom I picked at 4. And to me, that's the Vrabel ego that leads to negative downside of the great Mike Vrabel.
That's the part of why I have such a hard time trusting Vrabel. It's the ego. It's the not willing to accept when you're wrong. And I think that kind of ego is necessary when you're a football coach. I think that kind of ego is also what makes Vrabel great and what makes Mike Vrabel really likable. It's also ultimately his downfall, or what was his downfall in Tennessee's, making the same mistake over and over again. And it's crazy to me how a lot of people can't acknowledge that or can't see that. Like whenever I tell people, oh, yeah, I used to cover Mike Vrabel back in Tennessee, it's always, oh my gosh, how did they fire him? And I was like, I don't know. Did you watch the last 2 years of the Mike Vrabel experience in Tennessee? Like, sure, looking in hindsight, you can say, what a bad move. Year 1 in New England with a year 2 quarterback and a roster that's not necessarily a top 1 in the NFL, gets them to the Super Bowl. Like, yes, that does make the Titans look stupid. But also, let's look back to the last 2 years in Tennessee. It was a roster that didn't have enough around it because you spent high, investment draft picks on players that weren't impact players. And that hurts over time. That's going to show warts on your roster over time. So I do wonder at what point, it's not now, you're coming off of the Super Bowl. Yes, it was an embarrassing loss. And yes, there are plenty of people wanting to nitpick the validity of this Patriots season. It's still the Super Bowl. So it's not going to happen now. I don't think it's going to happen in the next couple of years. I do wonder at what point, what is going to be the domino that falls for Patriots fans to fall out of love with Mike Vrabel a little bit, because I do think it's inevitable because he is making the same mistakes over and over again.
Okay, I want to hit the YouTube chat, and then I want to go with some lightning round questions for you.
Okay,
and what I mean by hitting the YouTube chat is I want the YouTube chat, like I want you to, the YouTube chat gets mad about things I say. I want you to judge, like basically fair or foul one way or another. Adam in Portland says, Lamar Jackson is not a Hall of Famer. That is now the dumbest thing you said today. I believe Lamar Jackson is a future Hall of Famer. Do you think that that's dumb?
I don't think that's dumb. He's a 2-time MVP. Could have been a 3-time MVP. I don't think that's dumb at all. No.
How many 2-time MVPs are not in the Hall of Fame?
How many 2-time MVPs have we had in the history of the NFL?
I mean, again, the guys I can think of off the top of my head,
Aaron Rodgers,
Brady, Mahomes, Rodgers, Manning, Favre,
and those guys have Super Bowls, so they have other things that are boosting up their resume a little bit. But let's take away, Aaron Rodgers has one. Would you tell me that Aaron Rodgers is not a Hall of Famer if he didn't have that one Super Bowl? I don't think so. And Lamar Jackson's career isn't over. He's 28? Lamar's still young. He's been in the league for a long time, so I think we think he's closer to the end than he actually is. So no, I don't think that's crazy.
I think if Lamar quit today, he'd still be in the Hall of Fame. Okay. Second person says, Sam Darnold turning around a Pee-wee football program to 9 wins is easily the dumbest take of the year. You did see my EPA breakdown, EPA per play. Again, that's the only metric that we have to go off of. Fair or foul?
9 wins. 9 wins.
That's how bad Cam Ward was this year. Nobody wants to admit it.
With this crap team, though, and look, I will acknowledge Cam Ward didn't show you anything overly great. Is anybody nationally talking about Cam Ward? I know it's the Titans, but if Cam Ward was worth talking about, he'd be talking about. But I don't think Sam Darnold is the difference between 3 wins and 9 wins.
Well, so here's what I would say. Again, the EPA take was that they would have been 8-9, which is adding 9 points to the Titans every game because of how many points. Again, according to EPA, that's not a number I made up. So
I don't even think you liked EPA.
I don't, but it's the only thing that says, hey, here is the value that Jared didn't make up in his head that somebody says Cam is and the value that somebody says Sam is. It's the only thing that we have to go off of. It's like Pro Football Focus for offensive linemen. They have no idea what offensive linemen are supposed to do in Pro Football Focus. Was he supposed to block? Was he supposed to pull? Was he supposed to? You don't know.
Yeah.
But they judge him anyways, and it's the only thing we have to go off of. So until the teams start releasing their own grades, fuck it, that's what we'll go off of. So with the EPA, taking in what Cam cost the Titans and what Sam gave the Seahawks, they would be 9 points a game. That would add 5 wins. That would make them 8-9. And my point is that 8-9, I think that's fair to win 8 games, a 5-game improvement. Seattle won 10 games last year. Sam goes in there. They win 4. Minnesota won 14 games last year. He leaves. They win 9. So his value between those two teams was 4.5 wins. I feel like saying his value is 5 wins is not crazy.
I also don't think it's a coincidence that, and we were talking about Justin Jefferson as the best receiver in the National Football League last year. And we were before. That's not like a new thing. That wasn't just a 2024 thing. How much did you talk about Jackson Smith-Njigba before this season?
He was, according to Madden Football, I use their rankings because, again, these are all subjective anyways. And so going into the season, Jackson Smith-Njigba was the 22nd ranked receiver in Madden Football at 86 overall, 2 points ahead of Ladd McConkey.
So, yeah. And now we're talking about Jackson Smith-Njigba in the same conversation as Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, if we're not even talking about Jackson Smith-Njigba being above those receivers in our, hierarchy of receivers. It's not just Sam Darnold. Like, I do have to give KOC some credit in Minnesota. I have to give Clint Kubiak a whole lot of credit in Seattle. It's not just Sam Darnold, but I also don't think that we can just ignore 2024 Minnesota, 2025 Seattle, and the fact that everyone around Sam Darnold has been elevated in those 2 seasons.
Plus, don't you think that the addition of Abdul Carter, Jaden Higgins, and Nick Emanwari would have represented 1 win for the Titans?
I love Nick Emanwari.
I was begging on the day of the draft for
him.
Emanwari. I texted Jordan Rogers because, I didn't really watch a lot of South Carolina football. And I said, how good is Emanwari? And Jordan Rogers was like, he's a fucking stud.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I want him. At 35, I was like, I want him. And then they traded him, and they ended up with Oladeja, who stinks, and Winston, who's hurt. And it's like.
And Abdul Carter is probably. Like, I talked to you last Super Bowl in New Orleans. You said, who would you take with the number 1 overall pick? I said Abdul Carter. Like, I would have taken Abdul Carter. And then it was it the knee or the foot or whatever the injury was? And then there's a lot of reports of him being kind of an asshole. So, I was a little bit of pause on Abdul Carter. But at the time, I would have taken it with the number 1 overall pick.
I do want to get to some of your thoughts as well. One guy says Will Campbell will be Vrabel's downfall. You know what I think the downfall for this is the one thing I'm looking at for Vrabel. And tell me if I'm wrong about this. So Vrabel was asked about Zach Kerr, who I think was the linebackers coach this year. Terrell Williams gets sick. Terrell Williams leaves the team. Kerr becomes the play caller, the de facto defensive coordinator. There were a lot of rumors at the end of the year when Shane Bowen got fired in New York that the Patriots were going to hire Shane Bowen to be the defensive coordinator.
No.
I am keeping my eye on this. If Vrabel makes Zach Kerr the defensive coordinator over bringing back Bowen, then I will say, okay, there's growth to Mike Vrabel. If Vrabel brings in Shane Bowen to be defensive coordinator, that's all I need to know about Vrabel. Is that fair or is that harsh?
That is so fair. Because it goes back to what I just said. He does the same shit over and over and over again, and he never gets held accountable for it. We saw it with Peter Skoronski, copy-paste Will Campbell. And he gave up, 14 quarterback pressures in the Super Bowl? He was exposed. And everyone kind of had the writing on the wall going into the draft process. I think everyone had Will Campbell going up really high in the draft. That wasn't just like a pull out of nowhere. But everybody did caution about the length of Will Campbell's arms. And it makes sense. I know that we talk a lot about hand size, arm length, those little measurables at the combine. We kind of scoff at it. We kind of laugh at it. But this is a game of inches. And the difference in some of these games could be the 1/4 inch of the length of arm that Will Campbell doesn't have, that a defensive end does. So you are spot on there. If I see that Vrabel hires Shane Bowen, I will roll my eyes into oblivion. Because how stupid can you be?
Do you think Vrabel's going to hire Shane Bowen?
Yes. Of course I do. I would love to be proven wrong. I would love to see the growth of Mike Vrabel. But yeah, 100% I do.
I completely expect Shane Bowen to be the defensive coordinator of the Patriots. In fact, when Vrabel said, and Vrabel never just gives things away and says, yeah, this is what we're going to do. But when Vrabel said, well, we got a lot to work through, I thought that, because I think Terrell Williams is too sick to return as defensive coordinator. I hope I'm wrong about that. I don't have any sourcing on that, but I just think that. But when Vrabel, I think Vrabel wants to bring Bowen in there, and I think that's what's going to happen. Okay, Super Bowl 60.
Yes.
What was your favorite part of the week, on air or off air?
Ooh, favorite part of the week. That's a great question. Had fun at Club Shay Shay. Had fun at the volume party. It was a fun little who's who of everything. On air, I got to interview Justin Jefferson and, like take my LSU fandom out of it. And obviously my own personal fandom for Justin Jefferson. Talk to him about JJ McCarthy. And it is so obvious and so clear how frustrated Justin Jefferson is with that organization. So it was just fun to be able to talk to him about that. Talk to Ryan Fitzpatrick about the Jets and like, why do the Jets suck so bad? Why can the Jets not find a solution at the quarterback position? And Ryan Fitzpatrick, obviously, he went to Harvard. He's a very smart guy. We hear all of his breakdowns on TV. But it was cool to kind of go into his mind a little bit, look at more like the philosophy of being a quarterback, the philosophy of developing a quarterback. So those were probably the two highlights. Oh, and also we broke a little news on Yahoo Sports Daily. Jay Glazer came on the show and instantly delivered a zinger and said that he thinks Max Crosby, or basically said that Max is done in Vegas. So that, stirred a whole lot of Raiders fans. So that was very, very fun. I went to a Wags brunch on Friday.
You were talking about this. I was in transit from San Jose to Nashville when this all went down. But basically, didn't you tell me it was like an influencer brunch and you were the only serious like media person there that wasn't?
Not the only one.
This is my lip gloss I use on Instagram and TikTok.
Not the only one, but we were outnumbered 100%. So it was Christian Juszczyk and Claire Kittle. They have a podcast. So they hosted this women in sports brunch on Friday. So I was like, cool, I'll go after my show. Fun, like meet some new people in the industry. Great, cool, whatever. I walk in and everyone has like a fancy little camera. Everybody's taking pictures. They're passing out caviar. I was like, whoa. And I'm like, all of these influencers are walking around, like people I recognize from Instagram, like people that I follow. And I was like, what in the world is going on here? I was fully expecting to walk into a room full of reporters, walk in, and it's not my wheelhouse. It was very fun. I made a lot of new friends. I definitely felt like the least fancy person there. But it was a good time. And a lot of influencers. I took a lot of photos of other people.
At your influencer party. Do you think I would have enjoyed the influencer party?
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Yeah, I got a nice little, it's right by my laptop. I got a nice little goodie bag.
What's in it?
We'll do an unboxing here.
Have you actually opened it, or you haven't opened it yet?
Yeah, no, I haven't. Of course I've opened it. I want to see what I got. There's caviar at this party. I wanted to see what was in this bag.
There was caviar at every party.
Oh, was it really? How many parties did you go to last week that had caviar?
The volume party had caviar.
Did they?
Yeah. Remember they walked around. First of all, the food at the volume party, I didn't really eat much because I went to a party before that, like a happy hour or whatever before that. And they had these like grilled chicken sliders. And you know me, like I have chicken everything. So for me, I had eaten so many grilled chicken sliders that I just wasn't in the mood for any of the food at the volume party. But the volume party had like great food.
So many dumplings. I saw Colin over there just like hunched over the dumplings.
So they had caviar there. Club Shay Shay had like
pizza.
Random pizza. And me and you, by the way, let me say, it hit because we got to Club Shay Shay. We probably got to Club Shay Shay at what, like 11:30 Pacific time?
Yeah.
And we just wanted to like go to Club Shay Shay so that we could say that we went to the Club Shay Shay party.
I didn't really want to go, but I got peer pressured into it. I was glad I did, but I was starving.
I don't know if I shared this with you at the time. My back was locking up on me at the volume party.
Oh God.
Like it was this happened to me randomly at a wedding. Lindsay and I went to a wedding in Cincinnati, and after the wedding was over, I got out of the Uber. And when I got out of the Uber, my back just completely locked up and like I could not move for about 5 or 6 seconds. And then everything was back to normal. It's awful. It feels like.
Are you getting old?
It feels like I was paralyzed for like 5 or 6 seconds. And that flared up like a couple of times at the volume party.
Oh, that's
so
scary.
So when we went back upstairs that second time, so after Jeff Schwartz left us,
Mhm.
and we went upstairs, and it was me and you and Hutton and Withrow and the guys from Fox Sports Radio. And when we were up there, I was leaning up against the bar because my back had locked up on me so much. And at one point, I walked down the steps backwards, like holding onto the rail because my back was hurting. And so I was just into Club Shay Shay, out of Club Shay Shay. It was cool. I did get a little bro hug with Shannon in there for a second. And
you did. Dare I say the New Orleans Club Shay Shay was better than San Francisco Club Shay Shay?
The San Francisco Club Shay Shay was weird.
It was
like,
a little weird.
New Orleans Club Shay Shay was like in this giant restaurant. You could just go wherever and see whoever and talk to whoever.
It was at Nobu. At Caesars.
Was it at Nobu?
It was at Caesars.
I just remember it was inside a giant mall.
Yeah, there's like a shopping mall at Caesars, which is very smart of them, like the Vegas effect of like you go, get drunk, win a bunch of money, blow all your money at the Louis Vuitton store. But yeah, I don't know what it was. I think at the San Francisco Club Shay Shay, I was kind of over it. I was tired. My feet hurt. You Uber Eats to Epsom salt because your feet hurt.
I did Uber Eats Epsom salt to the hotel, and I got back to the hotel.
It was nice.
Beautiful tub at the Westin, and I just stuck my feet in the Epsom salt for like 12 minutes. And then when I got out of the soaking and my feet were just like I was laying on the bed, my feet were killing me. I was walking like 8 miles a day at the Super Bowl. My feet started to feel like they were plumping up like hot dogs on the little rollers. It just felt so
like at a 7-Eleven.
It just felt, my feet just felt so nice. I was so happy with that. And then I went to the CAA party the next day. I went to the Believe party, and then there was a break between the Believe party and the CAA party. And what was crazy was Braun Husteman, who is the CEO of Believe, he came on the show Friday. Braun and I talked at the Believe happy hour, the Believe party, for like an hour and a half. And Cal Ripken Jr.'s son was there. He's got a show in Baltimore. It's actually a pretty good show, the Ryan Ripken Show. And I had seen some cuts of Ryan Ripken's. I didn't know that Ryan Ripken was Cal Ripken's kid, but it was kind of us. And I got to know this Ryan Ripken and his crew. They're very, very nice people, and they do a very good show in Baltimore. But so Braun and I talked for a while, and then we left the Believe party, and I was going to invite him to the CAA party, but he was going to the Athletes First party. And so he was like, do you want to go to the Athletes First party? And I was like, do you want to go to the CAA party? And that's like the Hatfields. Well, that's like the Hatfields versus the McCoys.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, so we went our separate way. And there was no point in catching Ubers in San Francisco. If everything was downtown, everything was a 15-minute walk from the next thing. And so I walked with this little break. I hit a dispensary, which is legal there, ate a gummy, walked to the CAA party, and then was at the CAA party till like midnight, 1 a.m. The entire NFL was at that CAA party.
I should have gone.
I invited you.
I know. I went to dinner with Fitz and my producer, some of the Fox Sports Radio people, my agent, your agent. And after that, I hit a wall. I was, my feet hurt. I was tired. I was losing my voice. And I had to fly out. That was Thursday night, right?
Thursday night, yeah.
I flew out Friday night on a red eye. I have to wake up tomorrow, get ready for my show, have everything packed up, bring my suitcase down, be ready to leave for the day. And that was the day of my influencer party. I went to dinner with a friend. I had like all of these things that I was doing on Friday and had all of these coordinating things. It was just overwhelming to the thought of being out until midnight or 1 a.m. that night before.
So I'm just going to let everybody in on that. I taped Friday's show on Thursday.
Smart.
And so I had a bunch of canned stuff, Mad Dog, Warren Moon, that stuff. I all taped it on Thursday and then dropped it on Friday. And so I remember I packed and then went to the Believe and uploaded the Friday show, went to the Believe happy hour. And I went to the Believe happy hour because I felt like I owed it to them because they took such good care of me. I love being a part of the Believe Podcast Network on YouTube, but I felt like they took such good care of me at the Super Bowl because the NFL denied a credential for me until Believe stepped in. And Braun, is a really, really nice guy. And Cam that really runs their day-to-day operations, he helped out a lot. So I felt like I kind of owed it to him, and I went in and it was freaking packed. And I ended up staying until the very, very end with Braun, and I ended up leaving. And so when I got back to the hotel from the CAA party at like 1 a.m, I packed everything up. I woke up at 7, took an hour car to the San Jose airport where I flew a direct from San Jose to B&A. It felt like a private jet.
That's
like
so
in the
nice.
middle of the day, kind of got to leave on my own terms. It was Southwest, but now Southwest is charging for bags and they're doing assigned seating. There was nobody on this flight. It was awesome. It felt like a private jet. I slept anyways, but if I didn't want to, the internet's free now because I've got the Southwest credit card. And it felt like a private jet, as close to a private jet as you can get with Southwest. And they got new planes that are actually kind of nice. So
is that the one that you think Amy Adams Strunk flew DeAndre Hopkins on?
No, I don't think those planes existed back
Southwest
then.
private?
Got 2 free bags at that point.
That's
you know what's
true.
crazy though about the Super Bowl?
On her point, or on her side of things.
This was my 4th Super Bowl, and every year I feel like I learn more about the Super Bowl to know, like, okay, next year when I go to the Super Bowl, I want to do this. Next year when I go to the Super Bowl, I want to do that. This was my 4th Super Bowl, and in previous years, when it had gotten to Friday and people left on Friday, I thought, man, I wish I was leaving on Friday. But then every year I convince myself that, no, I want to stay for the parties on Friday. And I end up staying and regretting it. And this year on Monday and Tuesday, I was like, man, I hate that I'm leaving on Friday. Like I would love to leave on Friday or I would love to stay for Friday for everything. And when it got to Thursday, I was like, praise the Lord that I am leaving tomorrow.
Yeah, I made the mistake of leaving Saturday morning in New Orleans. Terrible decision because there was a parade going on right in front of my hotel, the Best Western off Canal Street. So it was impossible to get out. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to leave Friday. Like I'm going to try and leave Friday right after the show. I couldn't leave on Saturday anyway because I was staying in one of the NFL hotels. And if you stay on Friday night, you have to stay the whole weekend. Like they want they want to keep those rooms open for people that are actually coming for the Super Bowl. Sure. So I was like, okay, I'll just get a flight out right after my show on Friday, get home as soon as possible. There was one at like 1 p.m. A show was done at 11 p.m. Pacific time. No way I could have made it to SFO in time for my flight 2 hours after my show wrapped. The other flight on Friday, there were some with stops. I don't do that. I fly direct. The only one was at like 11:30 p.m. So I think that taking a red eye out on Friday is the worst of both worlds.
Yeah.
Because you have to take up all this time on Friday when people are still working. You get home Saturday morning, so you're super tired. You don't sleep on the flight, but you're staying there all day just up in time to not be able to go to some of the parties.
Here's the other problem that you haven't run into yet. You don't have kids. And the last 2 Super Bowls, it's as soon as I walk in the door, it's like, here.
Yeah.
And that is like, again, I kind of slept on the flight. So I got home at 4:00 when I walked in here, and it was like, all right, I get to parent for 2 hours and then Jack goes to bed. Last year, I flew back in first thing from New Orleans on Saturday morning, and it was here, and we had to go to a birthday party. And this is not like the Vegas Super Bowl where I got to lay in bed. The Phoenix Super Bowl, I got back on Saturday morning, and my dad picked me up from the airport, dropped me off at the house, and I laid in bed all day. Yeah. Like
that's what I did on Saturday.
Can't do that. Cannot do that with a kid. Something that I guess I have learned in that regard. My favorite thing about the Super Bowl, it's kind of off air, kind of on air. So Andrew Fitzpatrick is a great guy. He does the booking for SiriusXM. He is PR guy for SiriusXM. Whenever I need something from an individual person at SiriusXM, I go to Andrew Fitzpatrick. And so I reached out to Andrew Fitzpatrick and I was like, hey, I'd like to get the guys that we always get on. I'd like to get Solomon Wilcots on. We got him on. I'd like to get Adam Shine on. We got Adam Shine on. I said, I'd like to get Mad Dog on. And he was like, hey, man, Doggy's schedule is tight, but I'll try to figure it out. And the last day, Fitzpatrick was like, can he do Friday? And I was like, I'm not going to be here Friday. So if they had said like, I'm sorry, but we thought you were going to be here Friday and that's all Dog could do. And because like Wednesday, they didn't come on Monday. They came on Tuesday. So Monday's totally out, which Dog has come on the show, I think, on Monday in the past. So that's out. Dog is on First Take on Wednesday. So that's out. And then it's like, so Thursday was really the only day. And Dog was doing Fox, NFL Network, and San Francisco radio. And that was the host radio network. So I went up to Fitzpatrick and I was like, is there any shot we can get Dog, to come on the show? I know. And he was like, look, I have to talk to Dog about this because it's his schedule. And so if Dog wants to stay and do your show, then he can do it. But if not, Dog goes, oh, I'm definitely doing Jared's show. I got to do Jared's. And
Are you fangirling?
Well, it wasn't a fangirl moment as much as it was like, man, like that's Mad Dog Russo doing that because he respects me and I'm on his channel. And that for me was like, that made me feel like, like Dog cared about me or Dog respects me or something like that. I don't know. I don't know if Dog even knows who I am. Every year he comes on every year and tells me I'm a really good talk show host. And although he did say, he's like, we talked about Tannehill in the past. And I'm like, we have talked about Tannehill in the past. So I guess he does kind of remember that stuff. But
Dog doesn't remember anyone's name that plays a sport. And he can't really remember the words of idioms and how they go together. But he does remember when you talk about Ryan Tannehill. He remembers the important things.
He does remember those things. And so that was kind of one of my favorite moments.
Speaking of serious, I interviewed Hendon Hooker I was on Sirius XM College Sports Radio on Tuesday and Wednesday with Jacob Hester. So we got a bunch of people, but most of like the college guys we got for that week. So we got Hendon Hooker and Joe Milton. So like I interviewed Doug Flutie. I interviewed Barry Sanders. I interviewed Christian McCaffrey. I interviewed so many people. Say that not to flex. I say that because I got more, I had more people reaching out about my interview with Hendon Hooker than anyone else. Like superstars in the league right now, legends of the game, Hall of Famers I talked to, but it was Hendon Hooker that people were like, this is crazy. This is sick. I'm like, you Tennessee fans. Hendon
I actually talked with Hooker.
Celebrity on Radio Row.
I actually talked with Hooker for a while. He was getting ready to do Westwood One Radio, which was right next to me.
Yeah.
At Believe. And he was just there. And so we just chatted for maybe 10 minutes. And I'm like, he's an impressive young kid.
He is.
I really liked him. The other one thing for me too was Warren Moon. So usually I book Warren in advance, but I didn't book Warren in advance this year. And Warren was set to do Westwood One. And Warren's person came over and was like, hey, Warren's good for 15 minutes from now. And I was like, hey, can we get Warren on in Nashville? And the handler was like, I mean, we can ask, but if Warren's going to do it, it's going to have to be right now. And we're only going to get 10 minutes. And it's only if Warren wants to. I said, okay.
Yeah.
So then Warren came on the show because, Warren always comes on the show. And I think Nashville's big for Warren because he is the bridge to the Oilers era of the Titans franchise. Like he represents the Houston part of that franchise. And Warren came on the show. And I heard one of Warren's handlers say to another one of Warren's handlers, they both had these like these papers and stapled together. And a guy was like, Warren says he has to do this show. He wants to do this show. And I was like, yes, Warren, you are the man. So that I enjoyed as well.
Look at you being a popular show on Radio Row.
I really don't want to get you involved in this, but
oh, God.
When the radio station and I decided to go our separate ways, somebody very wise who never technically worked for me, but kind of worked for me, like as an associate, said to me, she said, you're going to think that your identity is in the station, but the truth is that the station's identity was you. And I knew that was true, But when I went to the Super Bowl and just to see like the people that wanted to come on my show, even though my show is not in the same place that it was before, I kind of felt that. You know, again, I'm not here to talk about the fact that my old employer, your old employer, they weren't at the Super Bowl. They would never pay to send somebody out to the Super Bowl. But it was just that, like, Mad Dog wanted to do my show and Warren wanted to do, and that did mean a lot to me. You know, it's not like just the standard, okay, you're on this one. It was no, Warren wants to do the show. No, Mad Dog wants to make time to the show. And that is important to me. And I hope that I treat people that way too. Like if it ever happens to me, like I hope that's how I treat people, you know, when I get older.
I mean, so I think you could say this about every industry. It's so much of a people business. It's so much who you are kind to, who you build relationships with. When you give people the time of day, people remember that. But especially in such a personable business that we live in, like relationships are everything. Like if you treat a producer with respect, 10 years from now, that producer might be repping some of the biggest names in our industry, and they'll be like, yeah, no. I want to make sure that I seek out that person because they always used to take care of me. So I'm glad that you had that experience.
Trying to think if there's anything else that we didn't cover your thoughts on the halftime shows, Bad Bunny and Turning Point USA.
Well, I didn't watch the latter.
I did.
I'm good on I Wanna Fish. I'm okay with that. That's not for me. I love Bad Bunny. Like Bad Bunny was one of my top artists on my Spotify Wrapped last year. So I was going to love it no matter what. But I just thought it was entertaining. Like I thought it was fun. It was people dancing around. There were a bunch of little Easter eggs. There was so much symbolism. Everybody was shaking their booty. I saw this one, I don't even remember. It was maybe Chris Long's podcast. He was like, I've never seen so many white men hate looking at big booty Latinas on their TV. But that's what it was. It was a lot. It was people having fun, like dancing around, having a good time. Like I enjoyed it.
I flipped over to the Turning Point USA one just because I wanted to see what that looked like.
Because you love Kid Rock.
Hey, I do have a Kid Rock story. I used to really, really like Kid Rock. I mean, I don't know. Has Kid Rock put out a new song in 15 years?
Even if he has, I don't know if I'd be able to tell you what it is.
Like, I remember Cowboy back in the day, and that one was freaking popular.
That was a banger.
Ball with the Ball and American Badass, and I turned on the Turning Point one because I wanted to see what it looked like. And quite
Wasn't
frankly,
it just like an empty auditorium?
No, there were people there, but it looked like, I said this earlier in the week, live from the Hillbilly Awards with special performances by Kid Rock. You know, it was not good. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. It was bullshit. Like when you're like, we're going to put together our own halftime show, you need to have like the pyrotechnics. Yeah. And at one point, this guy was like, I wrote this song with Colt Ford and Mr. Jason Aldean. This is not a concert. Like the
Super Get on with
halftime
it.
show is song. There's no transition because it's 14 minutes and you got to go. And if you're going to try to do the Super Bowl halftime show, you have to do the Super Bowl halftime show. And they didn't do it. And that was just kind of my thing on it. Your thoughts on San Francisco as a Super Bowl city?
I am of the belief that New Orleans is the greatest host city for any event. You and I talked about this at Club Shay Shay. I think New Orleans is the perfect city for any big event, for a national championship game, for a Super Bowl. It's a smaller city. It's walkable. And you can run into people on the street. You can walk everywhere. The little area that we were confined to in San Francisco, yes, it was nice. It was walkable. But there were like so many people from Yahoo that were there that I never saw because they were staying in Santa Clara because the majority of the things that they were doing for Yahoo were happening at the stadium. So I feel like there was like a whole half of the week of Radio Row and of the Super Bowl that I just didn't see or, didn't witness because it was 2.5 hours away. And New Orleans has great restaurants. You choose your own adventure. If you want to go eat, if you want to go drink, if you want to go have fun, if you want to go to the clubs, you can do those things. It offers that. And it's cost effective. I thought San Francisco was fun. It was better than I thought it would be because it was so much more confined than I thought it would be. It was good. Not my favorite, but it was good.
Caroline Fenton, ladies and gentlemen, Yahoo Sports Daily, which, by the way, I have found on the free TV channels that come with every smart TV. In fact,
Yes.
my little Samsung TV right here that has us on it right now, which I use for my office and my gym, and it's on the little roller thing. You know all about that. It is now set up so that when I turn it on, it starts on the Yahoo Sports channel, which does have Yahoo Sports Daily, which is why I texted you this morning, and I was like, who the hell is this guy you're talking to about Dorito chips?
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, he's got 50 million YouTube subscribers. I'm like, never mind. Get him on my show.
Yep. He was talking to us. He went to Greece and Giannis was giving him like a one-on-one tour of his hometown. Like this kid he's like the streamer influencer, like of all streamers. But I don't think that you're necessarily his demographic. Yes, of course.
Does Yahoo Sports get paid for that?
I don't
like.
Think
is
so.
there money to be made from having a free channel on the free TV?
Oh, from the fast channels?
Yeah. Like Jim Rome has his own channel on all of those. And I would love to know, like, is Jim Rome making money off of that? Or is Jim Rome just trying to be seen at this point in his career?
Honestly, I don't know. I would assume if we're doing it, there is money to be made from it. But also at the same time, like there's no ads. So I don't know how you make money from it. It could just be like the Yahoo Sports Network is very much so in its infancy. So I mean, it may be just as valuable to get eyeballs on the product than it is to get money from ads on the product.
Ladies and gentlemen, Caroline Fenton, Yahoo Sports Daily every day. You guys know her socials. You know her, so on and so forth. Caroline, appreciate you, and we will talk very, very soon.
Appreciate you.
Yep, Caroline Fenton joining us here on the program. And I did want to get to that just because, I wanted to kind of recap what Super Bowl week was like and behind the scenes and so on and so forth. And with Caroline, I do feel like, she brings out kind of the most hangout in me. I want to talk about this. I started the show on this today. I found out right before I came on, James Vanderbeek has passed away. He starred as Dawson in Dawson's Creek in the 90s. He also starred as John Moxon, the quarterback in Varsity Blues. Both Dawson's Creek and Varsity Blues are two of my favorite shows and movies of all time. I was born in 89. I grew up in the 90s. And I feel like both were very entertaining and maybe even a little educational. As far as entertainment television was concerned, I thought he was a great actor. And I'm just going to say this. I never met him. I followed him on social media. I loved Varsity Blues. I loved Dawson's Creek. And for some reason, this one hurts. For somebody I don't even know. But James Vanderbeek was not an older guy. This one hurts. It hurts like Matthew Perry. That one, as someone who grew up watching Friends, hurt. This one hurts. James Vanderbeek will be remembered as Dawson and as Johnny Moxon.